So I became a minister in 2005, January 17th, 2005. I became a minister and served that community for 10 years, Spiritual Living Center of Charlotte. And I loved it so much. And I convinced myself it was my love for my community that was the reason that I got in there on Saturday about midday, and I made sure the bathroom looked good. I made sure the bookstore looked good, spot checked the floors, make sure the cleaners did their job. Stuff the bulletins, then I go to do something else. Then I come back and make sure I got everything right. Oh, I didn't straighten the chairs. And then I go straight. These lock, don't they? They lock together, but we didn't have those fancy chairs. You know, we had the ones that moved all the time. And so I was making sure that, nope, some people don't like them that close. You know, and I was doing the chairs. And then I get there early on Sunday morning, and I make sure the till was right and for the bookstore person. One of my mentors through the years has been Edwene Gaines. Y'all know Miss Edwene, the goddess of prosperity. Who was funny, that woman, and she will call you out. So Miss Edwene was visiting one morning, and I got there, and she was there for the purpose of helping us grow the center and for the purpose of group leadership, you know, help the board. Would you just help my board, help them grow? She gets there, and she says, I said, so you want to dive into the board work? And she said, after church, she goes, no, let's do it right now. Have a seat. The service was getting ready to start. And I was like, okay. And she said, what'd you do this morning? And I said, oh, I got here early, and I went out through all my list. And she said, well, you have just stole from your people. I said, excuse me? She said, that was somebody's opportunity to connect with their community. And you took it from them. And that other thing you did, that was another person. That was probably 3 people's job where they could have bonded. And you took that, and you said you did stuff yesterday too? That was a whole other team that could have, and I was like, I'm sorry. And she said, honey, you got one job. Do y'all know Edwene? She's from Alabama, so she's got a thicker Southern accent than me. It's possible. And she said, honey, you got one job, and that's to pray. Now, you don't have to be a minister to take that advice. You got one job, and that's to pray. And our prayers are every breath. It's not just, you know, many of us were raised different ways and got different ideas around prayer. But hopefully you're getting the idea of how they pray around here, which is knowing that the divine, that one presence, one power is active in my life. God, the good, the omnipotent presence in me, as me, moving through my life. But our prayers are our actions. They're our breath. It's every thought. Every thought is a prayer. Every action is a prayer. Every step is a prayer. You got one job, and that's to pray aright as master teacher. Jesus taught us to pray in my name, he said, the way that he knew his divine sonship to the divine, right? To pray. And by the way, good job to Unity Center of Peace, because like 5 or 6 people were involved in the emails back and forth about this service today. That tells me that Reverend Victoria is not stealing anybody's job. She's given you all that opportunity to connect. The board has given you that opportunity to connect this community. If you're here for the first time, there's a job for you, I promise, because it's a church and there's always going to be a job. But it's not a job. It's an inroad. It's a way to say, I belong to something bigger than myself. And I belong in a community where people can remind me of the truth of my being when I forget. Ooh, I almost got Baptist and said, amen. Woo! Anyway, but it's important, and we need to remember that. I wanted to share that song, Safe, this morning because it's not from the personality of us. It's not from the how many chairs can I straighten and how many bulletins can I make perfect. It's not from that place that we can tap into that safety, that feeling of living from the inside out. It's from not the personality, but the essence of who we are, that inner presence that is always trying, moving. I say trying because it's wanting to move through us in greater and greater degrees. We are the ones that, as Emerson said, have to get our bloated nothingness out of the way, okay? So we have that opportunity continuously to open the divine circuits and let the infinite flow through us in greater and greater ways, knowing that God is expressing as my life. This divine presence. When I first came into New Thought, I didn't want to hear the word God. I didn't want to hear the word Jesus. I didn't want to hear I'd so been beaten by the book that I was not a fan. And so if you are that way, just, substitute the word life, the word love, the word truth, right? Because it's all one. Now I'm good with it. Now I love the Bible again. Now I love Jesus. It's all good because I see that he was showing us the way, just as Buddha was, all these many saints and sages, showing us the way to remember that life is always and ever coming through us to the degree that we allow it to show up as our life. And so either we believe this or we don't, right? We say we do. Many times we say, oh, yeah, I believe that there's a presence and a power active in one presence, power active in my life. God the good, omnipotent. Then why do we complain? Then why do we grasp for control? Why do we resist and protect and project and defend and, right? Ask yourself that the next time you are finding fault in yourself or in everybody else. If I believe that this one power and presence is moving through active as my life, then somehow this too is good and this too is God and there's a blessing in this for me and I demand to see it now, as Emma Curtis Hopkins would say, the beautiful teacher of teachers. So we believe it or we don't. And it's okay. It's not about spiritual guilt here. We're not going to beat ourselves up and flog ourselves for having those moments where we want to complain or we want to feel like, what's the point? We all have those. And if we don't acknowledge that, we slide into that toxic positivity, and that's not what we're about in New Thought. We're about being accountable, though, and saying, you know what, I step back on that. I step back on my commitment to remember the truth of my being and the truth of yours and yours and yours. I was having a conversation with a dear friend one time, and she was not happy with me. And she was telling me off, and we'd been friends for a very long time, my best friend. And she was telling me off. And she hung up on me. And I was like, oh, no, she didn't, right? For about a second, I went to, oh, no, she didn't. Girl, because I can tell you, I could read you some things. And then I went, wait a second. Course in Miracles says, I forgive myself for seeing you as anything less than a child of God. And I just closed my eyes and opened my heart and kept saying, I forgive myself for seeing you as anything less than a beautiful, beloved child of God. And I just went on and added to it, who loves me, respects me, et cetera, and the phone rings. And she said, I'm sorry. That's not who I am or who I want us to be in friendship. Let's work this out. I forgive myself for seeing you as anything less than a beautiful, beloved child of God. Wow, don't we have a growing ground for that right now in our world? So many people reminding us we can do that work. Lots of self-forgiveness. Forgive myself for seeing you and you and you and oh, you. Right? But what if we do? What if we could just really do that and practice it, y'all? What will happen? What is happening? I believe it with every fiber of my being, even though sometimes I have a song that says, sometimes it feels like the whole world's burning down, and sometimes it does. But I believe that what's happening is that this divine perturbation, right, this perturbative structure, that all of the old is getting cleared away and the toxic is getting pulled to the surface so we can go, whoa, want to create something better than that as a collective consciousness? Let's do this. But the way to do it is always letting go of that tight grip that we have on, you have to do it this way. They have to show up this way. No, let that go. Let that go and trust that that one power and presence active in your life is taking care of those details. It's moving ahead in front of you, blessing your ministry. Even if you haven't just been ordained, congratulations, Reverend Pat, now all the rest of you that are on that path. It's blessing your ministry already, because you wouldn't have had that divine idea if there weren't the mechanics for its fulfillment within you already. So whatever it is that you're having this pull towards, that's the Spirit within you pulling you forward. Say yes to it. Let the old ways and the old outworn ways of doing things and patterns of belief, let it go. Because otherwise, you will always have opportunities for complaining. You will always have opportunities for feeling like life is falling apart. I remember back in 2009, my life kind of had blown up a little bit. I kind of lit the dynamite myself. But anyway, it was... And I was co-pastoring with my life partner, and I decided we were better as friends. Whoopsie. And so it didn't go well. And for appearance's sake. And anyway, there was a lot of struggle to keep the church together. We did it, though. I think it's one of our greatest accomplishments as ministers to be able to live the teaching in real time in a glass house. But anyway, But the main point I want to make of that is that there was every evidence that, wow, she has to be crying herself to sleep. This is a rough time. And yet I was coaching people like always. I was smiling. I was doing my concerts like always. I was laughing. I was having a good time with life. And I had this one coaching client come in and she said, I just have one question. It was right after session, you know. She goes, I have one question. How are you okay? How are you okay right now? Because I see what's going on in your life. And I said, because I live this teaching. I live it. It doesn't mean I don't have hard times. I do. And this has been one of the hardest of my life. And when I live this teaching, it buoys me back up like a pelican diving down and boom, right back up on the water, right? It pops me right back on the top of the water when I can just remember to come back to the principles that I teach, that there's one power and presence active in my life, God the good and omnipotent, and that every face I see is the divine looking back at me, and that every opportunity to move outside my comfort zone, y'all, I'm outside my comfort zone. You see my fancy shoes? I wear black and brown. That's it. And tennis shoes. They're black too. I wear black and brown. These are the best shoes. This friend of mine said, I ordered the wrong size and it's too late to send them back. What size do you wear? I said, 11 women. She said, they're yours. You're welcome. And I was like, thanks. And then I put them on and I was like, whoa, how many things can I wear these with? This is great. But whether it's your shoes, your routine to work, whatever conversations or the patterns that have held you back, we have these places that we don't want to go outside of because it's comfortable. Man, welcome the discomfort. I'm going to do a song about that this afternoon, about welcoming the discomfort, not tolerating it, not putting up with it, accepting it, welcoming it. Like, woohoo, here we grow. That's what I told my community when I said, I love y'all. Founding this community is one of the best joys of my life, but it does not hold a candle to my 2-year-old. And I'm stepping down from pulpit ministry so I can mainly be at home during the day with my baby while my wife is out selling real estate. And that's joy. And I said, but here we grow. Here we grow. So it's outside those places that are comfortable. It's where we're growing the most, where we can let go and let this unfolding happen. So back to the coaching client, she said, how are you okay? And I said, I live this teaching. And then after she left, I thought, really, how am I okay? How am I? And so I looked on my bookshelf and I was like, oh, Byron Katie, Loving What Is. That was instrumental. Oh, Deepak Chopra, 7 Spiritual Laws. Oh, Ernest Holmes, Myrtle Fillmore. And I started putting all these books around me and literally going, thank you. Thank you. Like they were my teachers in front of me, right? And I was like, namaste. Thank you. And then I realized I had a curriculum and a class was born out of all this chaos, right? So can we let life just continue to life through us, right? Just continue to grow and bless us as these things that feel challenging. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. I had no idea when I picked the title for today, from gripping, clawing, gripping, to growing, and talked all about surrender. I had forgotten, first of all, that y'all use my song, which I'm so touched and honored by. But I did not know that today's daily word, would you like to hear it? It is all about spiritual surrender. It's natural to have ideas and preferences about how things should be and work toward the results I want. I'm a type A personality. I like that. I'm like, yes, okay, say more. But I can exhaust myself if I attempt to exert control over my life's circumstances. In fact, the more I try, the less control I feel I have. Releasing the illusion of control, I practice spiritual surrender. So much more than giving up. Surrendering my efforts and my hopes to the divine within me is an act of empowerment. I would also add it's an act of alignment. It's coming back into alignment. It means living my faith that God is in and through all things. It means trusting that there are outcomes better than the ones I have imagined. I surrender to God's peace and perfection within me. I give up trying to control outcomes and relax, welcoming serendipity and ease. Surrender is the way. And it all sounds so great, and you're like, yes, sign me up. I surrender. And then something happens that scares the bejeebies out of you. And we forget to surrender, don't we? That beautiful song that y'all sing every Sunday was born at 5:05 on a Friday. You know how I remember that? Because at 4:55, I told the story before here, but it's been 7 years. I think I can bring it back. Because at 4:55 on a Friday, I received a phone call with some information about some really excruciating pain I was having with my ovaries. It was my OBGYN calling at 4:55 on a Friday saying, please give us a call back at your earliest convenience. When I called back at 5, it went to voicemail. And I went to the shower. And I started to cry. And I let the water wash over me, and I was terrified. I wasn't thinking about surrender. I wasn't thinking about spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. I was thinking, how long do I have? It scared me. It scared me. And the words with the water started washing over me. I surrender. I trust, and I know that as I surrender, I fall into the arms of love. Love is holding me. Love is moving through me. Love is healing me if healing needs to happen, because a healing is just a revealing of the perfection of God already present inside us. And I kept singing it. I don't usually have songs that just internally, spontaneously combust, but that chant just started just coming. I just started singing, and that's what I started to sing. I surrender. I surrender. Turned out everything was fine. Pretty sure, I used to work for insurance. I'm pretty sure HIPAA would have allowed them to say, you're good. But no, it's okay. It's okay. I called back on Monday. That's what I got. Good news. You're great. I'm like, but I had that opportunity all weekend to keep coming back to, I surrender, I trust, I surrender, I trust. You see, y'all, I don't know about you, but for those of us who've turned, when I turned 50, all of a sudden I started, and now I'm 57 and I have a 2-year-old. Yes, you can pray for me. But when I started, and then when I had these friends that started passing away, since I was a kid, I've always had friends that were 10, 15 years older than me. My oldest sister is 17 years older than me, so I always had older friends. And even friends my age, I've had some of them pass. And as friends have passed and different life things have happened, you hone in on how precious this life is. And what do I want to do with it? That, what they call the dash, right? What do I want to do with that place between birth and death? And how am I going to live? How am I living? Because how we spend our every moment really is how we're spending our lives. So when you catch yourself giving your energy and literally your life to putting someone outside your heart, to putting yourself outside your heart, to anything that does not cultivate that awareness of the oneness of spirit and bring your purpose forward, you're giving up a piece of that dash. So you may say, well, I'm retired. I don't really have a purpose anymore. Don't ever say that. We all have something pulling us forward as long as we're still here. But are we listening? Are we saying, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to whom every single day we wake up? That's the call. And to figure out what it is that's mine to give and to hone that gift and give it, because we're here to share and to connect. Our wholeness, our holiness blesses the world. Thank you. Namaste.
Hi, it's Reverend Victoria here. I'm at Unity Center of Peace with our house band, Bright Matter.
Hello.
Yeah, and if this video has inspired you or empowered you or opened your heart, opened your consciousness, or even just given you hope, we ask that you support what we're doing here by making a donation today, going to unitychapelhill.org or clicking the link below. And we thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.